and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting for October 4th, 2010. This evening, we do have no public hearings, and we have no new business to discuss. Moving along, we do have other businesses. We do have a packet in our packet, notices from Budding Town, and all the board members have received a copy of those. If anybody has any questions on those, if not, entertain a motion to place on file.
So moved.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. We have the zoning board of appeal notices. Prior to that, we have the acceptance of the September 9th, 2010 minutes. Anybody have any corrections or any comments on the September 9th, 2010 minutes?
I have none.
Hearing none, we entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion made second. All in favor, say aye. Chair votes yes. Okay, so now we'll move along to the zoning board of appeals matters. These are matters which will be appearing before the zoning board of appeals for public hearing, and these will be for us for recommendation only. The first matter is a Stephen DeRosa, who trustee for Tanya Ellis, and the property is located at 142 First Street in Lowell, and the present use is a single family, and the proposal is for a two-family. The applicant wants to convert the entire building into a legal two-family residence. And we have a copy of the plan and a brief narrative for the board's consideration.
I have a question relative to this, Aaron. If you look on the zoning map, there's a part of First Street is in the single-family zone, and then it crosses over into a TTF zone. Where exactly does this fall?
Sure. If you, I don't know if I could bring the map up, but if you can picture First Street parallel to 110 coming into the city from Drake, it's actually right up from the Rotary. It's if you go right up the hill, the Rotary, and this property is almost right in the middle of that TTF district, right smack dab middle on First Street. It's about equidistant, between the TSF and the traditional multifamily as well.
Is there any record of how many two-family homes there are in there?
How many are in that street?
Or have been converted from something else to two-family? He makes reference in his documentation of that fact.
There hasn't been any kind of official survey done on our end or on the applicant's end. Joe and I have both done some visits to the site just to kind of get some ideas of the context. But I didn't bother to actually count the number of two families, but there are a bunch in it. There's nothing official.
Did you have any concerns when you did the site visit?
Well, they're generally looking for a number of variances. There's the lot area per dwelling unit. There's the side yard. If you look on the architect's site plan, they're proposing an additional stairway from the building that will encroach on one of the side yards. They're also seeking to widen the parking area, so that'll widen the curb cut to well beyond the minimum, which right now is, the maximum, which is 15 feet. It's going to go to approximately 38 feet. There's another variance there. And then there's also a variance requested for frontage. The single family only requires a 55-foot dimension for frontage. Having a two-family kicks up to 65. Then they have 62, so there's another variance. So there's a number of variances that they're asking for here, which, based on, if there was a good survey of how many two families are in the neighborhood, it may or may not meet neighborhood character. That's another question that we haven't really looked at in detail. But the one thing that I would say in terms of parking, on the south side of the street, First Street, there's no buildings that are along that. It's because of the grade, it gets down the hill. There's no space. There's really no space for any additional building or construction for most of First Street, particularly right adjacent to the Rotary. And there's also street parking on both sides of the street, so there's a lot of parking available on the street. So I almost would recommend that if the zoning board, planning board was to make a recommendation that this was a good idea, that instead of providing 4 on-site parking spaces and widening the curb cut and all the subsequent impacts on stormwater and actually losing a street parking space, to actually keep the 2 parking spaces on-site and then request the variance for the number of parking spaces and allow them to park on the street, if that makes any sense. So there'd only be 2 parking spaces on-site, a narrow curb cut to reduce that stormwater impact, and then have the rest of the parking provided on the street. It's kind of a unique situation where there's no buildings on one side, so that's one thing that we've noticed internally here. But that's only if the other variances seem to make sense, the lot area. And
So you're saying to widen the street? Is that?
no, I'm sorry, I'm saying instead of 4 parking spaces as they're showing
Yeah,
on the site, actually only provide 2 off-site parking spaces.
rest on the street.
And have it rest on the street. The street's plenty wide right now for parking
Okay,
on both
all right, I
sides.
misunderstood, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just, I did visit the site, and it is somewhat, looking at some of the other homes, when you look at on one side of the First Street where the houses are located, it is kind of a incline. It's not unusual to see the drive cut in, what they're proposing. And there's a couple of properties that are similar, with very substantial retaining walls around the parking. There is a house also, I think it's 140, is actually sets in behind here as well. Myself, I wouldn't be comfortable giving a recommendation without hearing testimony from the abutters and really and hearing the full plan. I think it looks like they're doing some work on that house as we speak. Looking at the neighborhood and looking at the other homes that are up and down First Street, it looks like similar approaches have been taken, so it certainly would be worthy taking a look at it. But I think they are looking, as Aaron said, they're looking for numerous amount of variances that I think you really would have to listen to testimony and the concerns of the neighbors. And that would be my thought on this, Mr. Chairman.
Any board members have any comments?
Yeah, Mr.
I
Chairman.
agree with that assessment. I think, the testimony from abutters particularly should be heard. There's too many variances and things going on here.
Okay, Mr. Genman?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree with that testimony as well, but the other thing that I think we need to be careful about is setting a precedent that it's, even though this isn't a 2-family district, that it's okay to take an existing single family, a house that's built for a single family, and kind of retrofitting it into a 2-family. Because I think when you do that, you end up getting with some very strange looking configurations, and you get, it's not set up where there's, 2 front doors and 2 entrances and separate utilities, and we just end up with some really bad situations, I think, when we take houses that were built to be single families and try to make them into 2 families, even though it's in the appropriate district. So, I personally wouldn't support this because I think that it's a bad precedent to be setting, even if it's been done before. I think, I think it's the wrong thing to do.
Anybody else have any further comments?
Yeah, I would, Mr. Chairman. I think I agree with the rest of the board members. If there was missing one dimension, you might go along with it, but it's missing the lot size, it's missing the frontage, and not only missing the frontage, it's taking conforming frontage and making it non-conforming frontage. It's missing the side yard, there's other issues involved. And I think you need to look at the criteria for a variance, which requires a substantial hardship owing to the shape and topography of the land. We've gotten to the point where, we're looking at variances more along the lines of, well, it's not that bad, so maybe it's okay. but I don't think it probably doesn't make a legal case for a variance in this particular case. And as I said, if it was one dimension, you can see, but where it's missing everything, I'd have a concern recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Do anybody want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion, recommend denial.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes for denial. Moving along, the next matter is, it's Valley Properties, and this is for 1235 Bridge Street, and this is for the Sunrise Shopping Center. This is for the internally illumination of all wall signs. They were in before us a few weeks ago, and we did recommend that these wall signs be approved at that point in time, because one of our conditions were, when we gave the site plan approval, is we wanted them to come back before us to see the wall signs before they went to the ZBA. So at that time, they did make that criteria. We had the pictures given to us in this packet. We also had the color pictures when we were here the last time. I brought those along if anybody doesn't have the color one. So I think when we looked at it, there was the September 9th meeting. I think they answered a lot of our questions. I think one of the follow-ups we had, and I think Aaron got back to us on this, I think they wanted to do something on the trim signs for the pharmacy, and then they checked with them the next day.
Yeah, one of the
Could
things
you
we
just follow up on that
discussed,
a little bit for me, if you would?
yeah, one of the things we discussed, and I think it was one of the conditions of the approval of the concept, was that the return color for the channel letters, which is the side of the sign, be a dark color, black, like with the Sal's and some of the other signage that would be proposed for the site, because it kind of, it visually narrowed or made the signage seem smaller. And Valley Properties did follow up with Walgreens, and they are going to use a much darker color. I think it's a bronze something or other. I don't know what the true title of it is, but apparently it looks very much like a black from the street. So the Walgreens wall signs, the return channel letters will be, in essence, a black color. So that fits with that. So.
Any board members have any questions on this matter? I know we've seen it not too long ago, at that September 9th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve.
Motion's made in favor?
Second?
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Mr. Chairman, should we also refer it to our city planner regarding signs?
Oh, yeah, always.
Rachel Kisker, who's the design planner, typically will write up a memo with her recommendations to the Zoning Board of Appeals. She's already looked at it with us because of the review of the planning board. It's pretty much going to be the same what we provided to you on the 9th. So it's up to you, but she'll be writing up another memo.
So she'll be seeing it and making recommendations regardless?
Correct.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so that motion carries for favor for the signs. That concludes the matters with the zoning board of appeals. On the general correspondences, I know we received in our packet that the city council did approve the Mullen Rule. That has been approved. Therefore, if one of the board members misses a matter, we can either check it by video or audio for the conference. And we discussed it earlier that we're gonna, Aaron, if you could, we're gonna draw something up for the next meeting. It's gonna be a form letter for us to sign off if we miss that, to comply with that Mullen Rule.
Correct, yeah. So there was, I think, a draft that was circulated when we kind of went through the steps, the process of having the Mullen Rule adopted. Joe, I think you had some comments. We've incorporated that. We'll take one more last stab to make sure everything's spelled right, and then have it for the next meeting, and maybe the board can approve it, just to have that as the sign-off. And then perhaps a revision to the planning board bylaw, just to show that the process is in place, it's available.
Okay, on the other general correspondences, you mentioned earlier, we do have some public hearings coming up, one for some rezoning for our next meeting.
Yeah, so the public hearing is scheduled for the 18th, the planning board, for what's been kind of termed the vehicle-related zoning amendments. There's, I think, 5 or 6. 3 of them are kind of more housekeeping than anything else. And then there's also been a rezone petition for 600 Rogers Street, And that will be,
November 1st, right?
right, that'll be scheduled for November 1st.
Okay. Anything further from the Division of Plan and Development?
I think that's it for now.
Board members?
I guess I could,
Sure. Go ahead.
one last thing. The Deputy Director for Development Services, Kendra Amaral, started last week or the week before, and I think she's gonna try to make the next planning board meeting to introduce herself, and if there's, maybe just a quick update on where we stand in terms of reorganization, so there'll be more information to follow on that.
Any of the board members have any correspondences?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make the note that I have a business commitment on the 18th, so I won't be able to make that meeting, but it sounds like the agenda is fairly light, so. no issue.
Any further comments by the board members?
Have none.
If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. We have adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone.